Today's episode, we are talking about the taboo subject of having it all. Is it that unicorn topic? Is it something that we all hope we can achieve, but somehow secretly think that it's impossible? Is it something that society has put on us and has assumed that there's no chance that you can be a good mom and be that ambitious, career-driven person? This is what we're unpacking in today's conversation. I have the absolute honor and thrill to invite Katherine Marr onto the Juggle is Real podcast. She is such a dynamic and incredible person. She has led such a beautiful life, and I am so delighted to have her on the show to share her experience and her insights with all of you. Katherine is a mom to a 5-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son. They're adorable. And she is a career professional, a multi-passioned entrepreneur, a business mindset and leadership coach. And she's also a partner in a boutique search firm. She's done a lot. Katherine studied commerce at Queen's University in Ontario. She's has her CPA and her CA with PricewaterhouseCoopers in Toronto and San Francisco. She has lived and traveled all over the world, including over 30 countries and all 7 continents, people. Some of her life highlights include, of course, her children, as well as hiking the Mount Everest base camp, summiting Mount Kilimanjaro, and sleeping overnight on Antarctica. All of this she has done on her own, aside from having the kids part, of course. Katherine has been in recruiting for 15 years. She has coached thousands of candidates and companies as a hiring business partner. And she also coaches clients one-on-one using mindset to help people attract what they want instead of chasing it. She helps things feel good and easy, something that I truly appreciate. And whether it be career, business, relationships, wellness, personal style, parenting, or all of the above, Katherine has the tips and the tools on how to do it all. She truly helps you love what you do and how you do it, so that you can love your day, unleash your highest potential personally and professionally. And what more can I say? Let's just dive right in with this beautiful conversation with Katherine Marr. Welcome to the Juggle is Real podcast. I'm your host, Andryanna and. A few years ago, burnout nearly cost me that happy, fulfilled life that I'd always dreamed of. Every day left me feeling overwhelmed with stress at work, at home, and just with life in general. I felt like I was constantly running and couldn't catch my breath. So I embarked on a journey of finding better balance, of learning how to prioritize my own needs, of shifting my mindset to live with more ease and balance, of learning how to do more without the pressure of doing it all. And I discovered that letting go of the need for a perfect life opened up opportunities to bring in more joy. So I am sharing my experience and my learnings with you so that you don't have to struggle. I want to show by example how liberating and empowering it can be to silence expectations, to learn how to live through the chaos of work and family with grace, joy, and ease. So what do you think? Are you with me? Let's get started. Before we dive into today's episode, I have great news to share with you. If you've listened to the podcast before, you've likely heard me talk about this one shift that will forever change your life. It will make you a better mom, a better spouse, a better colleague, boss, and teammate. It will improve your health, your happiness, make you more efficient, reduce stress, and overall feel better. This shift, my friend, is putting you first, making yourself your number one priority, above the kids, above work, above the housework, the homework, and the to-do list. And it's easier said than done. But the good news is that I am hosting an intimate but impactful workshop on November 16th called You First, making the shift to better balance. In just 2 short but very important hours, I will help you shift your mindset, lose the guilt, and get rid of judgments. This is a fully immersive live workshop on November 16th. You will leave our virtual space with actionable tools, manageable boundaries, and easy ways to shift your life immediately. Listen, I know you're strapped for time. I know that you are managing a lot, but mostly I know that putting yourself first will make all of it a lot easier and feel so much better. So join me virtually from 12 to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday, November 16th for You First, a shift to better balance. There's a link to reserve your spot now in the podcast notes. I can't wait to see you and help you put yourself first. Now let's get to today's episode. Katherine, welcome to the show. I am so happy that you can make the time to be with us.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
So let's just get started. We have heard your beautiful life introduction. You have led such a full life, both personally and professionally. And I can't wait to just dive right in. But just to start off, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? How would you describe you?
Oh my gosh. Thank you. So firstly, I'll start with my kids because they're my number one joy and the thing I'm the most proud of. So I'm a mom of a 5-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son, and they light me up. They are my favorite thing in the entire world. I would describe myself as a multi-passionate woman. So I'm 42. I've led a very full life, which I'm very grateful for, and have a lot of different things that have led me to where I am today, which is a place of gratitude and privilege and just a full, beautiful life. So I have always loved personal development since I was a young kid. I remember watching Oprah after school. I remember getting her book, like I was really young, like we're talking like grade 3. I've always been addicted to it. I like to do. I really like to dive in. I'm a mover. I've climbed mountains, not technical climbs, but I've traveled around the world by myself. And I just really like to create opportunities, to have an adventure. And I also just like a little bit of personal style, beauty. So definitely multi-passionate is a great way I like to think of myself. I can often be found listening to a podcast or a coaching lesson with my AirPods on some form of walk or hike around my neighborhood, often with a matcha or a green tea in hand, and probably wearing some type of rose gold jewelry.
Yes. You know what? You have a beautiful sense of style, let me say, and so if anyone is interested in fashion and just style, your Instagram is so beautiful and your children are adorable. Like their little blonde tendrils are just the sweetest things to see. But I love how you mentioned that you're, multi-passionate and you have so many different facets that you're interested in. I was just discussing with my son yesterday. I found out that he and his classmates are reading The Witches by Roald Dahl. And I don't know if you're familiar with that book, but we read that when I was in grade 3. And so when I heard that, I was like, wow, oh my gosh, I loved that book. And I'll have to dig out that movie. But you are reading Oprah's books when you're in grade 3. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
I grew up I was always a mature soul, for better or for worse, but that's funny.
Yes. And I mean, hey, that's amazing. It's sort of, probably guided you to where you are today. And so I wanted to know, because you've mentioned that you have pivoted many times in your life, rerouted your journey from a personal perspective, also professionally. And you have done this more than once. So can you talk to us about this a little bit? Give us an example. I feel like sometimes we get into these places in our lives where we feel like, well, I've come this far. There's, no turning back, or why would I start something new? Because it's going to be so hard. But as we dive in further, we're going to know that it's totally possible to do and have everything we want. So can you just give us 1 or 2 examples of how you've done this in your life already?
Yes, absolutely. And it is funny because the example I'll share, which I think is one of the most pivotal that I have, at the time, I was 29 and I felt like maybe it was too late. And now at 42, the awareness, and that actually seems funny because just to what you just said, it's never too late. So when I was 29, I left a very successful job in search, so recruiting, sold my condo, move to Los Angeles, California. So I moved on my own to a new city, a new country.
So you were in Toronto?
I moved from
LA?
Toronto, yeah. So I was born and raised in Toronto, and I traveled and studied abroad and lived and worked abroad, but I hadn't lived anywhere for more than 2 years other than Toronto at the time, aside from when I studied at Queen's, which is in Kingston, Ontario. So I moved to Los Angeles, California, quit my job, sold my condo, I got incorporated. I, at the time, had been working in search. So I was in a very corporate recruiting role, working with a lot of certified accountants. And I decided to start a celebrity fashion website, as one does.
Of course.
When they're 29. I had gone on a recent expedition on my own to Everest Base Camp, and I summited base camp on New Year's Day. And I I asked myself, what did I want? What did I want? What did I want my life to look like? Was I happy? And while I was very successful professionally, I didn't have the same fullness personally. And at that point, my job felt easy, not in the ease I talk about today, but just transactional. And I just wasn't being challenged. And I was single, and a lot of my friends were married and having kids. And I just decided that, it was better to try this, and who knows, maybe fail, than to not try it at all. And when I get an idea in my head, I do it. So I literally came back from that trip, got incorporated, got myself an entrepreneurial visa to move. Like, I'm not American. I don't have any residency or status to work there. So really just started executing, had a business plan, and it was an e-commerce idea. So it was a website. What are they wearing? And the idea was to find celebrities in a movie. Maybe Jennifer Aniston was wearing a certain purse, and you wanted to have that purse. So to offer the consumer a link to the purse, and that would offer you affiliate revenue, but then have a mid price and a low price. So have it accessible to everyone. Similarly, there's an entire offering today called I Like to Know It, which is a similar idea.
Yes.
I'm not responsible for, but along the same lines. So yes, at the time, 29, moved there. One of my best friends at the time and her husband were there, but I knew literally 2 people in the city, lived on my own, and branched out, got contacts in fashion, started doing a little bit of personal styling, just from my own passion for style and just being in LA. Totally different type of job, totally different industry, totally different experience. Had a lot of fun, had a beautiful life there, went to events that I never would have found myself in Toronto. And it was a pretty remarkable pivot, given that it's not like I decided to move to Los Angeles and work in recruiting. I'd lived in San Francisco previously, but when I lived in San Francisco, I did the same thing I was doing in Toronto for about a year. So that wasn't this, that was exciting. And San Francisco is an amazing city, but it wasn't a huge pivot. Professionally, that was just more of a change of location personally, and the opportunity to work on different clients. So yeah, this was pretty major. It was pretty bold. I remember when I was resigning and letting people know, a few people thought it was a joke. They actually thought I was going into competitor, and this was this like cover-up story, which was really funny. Yeah, like actually
quite the tale to tell for
right?
Just moving to your competition. Yeah.
Can you imagine? Exactly. Quite a tale if that had been the case. And no, I did it. So it was a really, really fun experience. It didn't end the way I had hoped. My mom had an accident almost 3 years in, and I moved back to Toronto immediately and indefinitely. And that was life happening and things taking a turn, which resulted in another pivot, because within a year after returning, I ended up back in recruiting at a different firm and in a leadership role and with a different focus. But it was very representative of what you said. It was an extreme pivot personally and professionally. And then the second example being circumstances out of my control, coming back and then having another pivot, which was more along the lines of what I had done previously, but I wanted to shape that in a different way. And so again, different firm in a leadership role. And that was 10 years ago now.
So I guess it's fair to say that you did actually leave your role to eventually go to the competition. You just spent 3 years.
Yes.
Having this amazing life in LA.
Yeah, that's funny, because I did end up at the firm that the joke was that's where was going. So hindsight's 2020, but yes, you're right.
Yeah.
In the end, I
That
did end
that
up
one like negative Nancy in the office was like, I knew it. I knew Katherine was doing this all. No, I'm kidding, but that's incredible. And I love that your life has taken so many different twists and turns, because that is what life is, right? But the part that really stuck out for me through this, and by the way, your bio doesn't tell about this beautiful fashion website, e-commerce platform that you created, which is so before your time and before our time. I think now it's just so common. It's so beautiful. So kudos to you on that. But I mean, you are climbing Mount Everest, so that unto itself is beautiful. Well, I don't know anything about Everest. I know it's a big mountain, and I feel like base camp is pretty high up there. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was
fun. You asked yourself a question, and I think many of us stop asking ourselves after a certain point, or maybe we don't ask ourselves that at all. And the question you asked was like, what do I want? And that's a question that we can come back to at any point. And whatever that answer is, we can fulfill whatever that answer is. And I think that's really beautiful. And you've shown that in so many ways. One of the subjects that I'm always talking about, and you know, maybe I sound like a broken record, but it's so important, because shifting your priorities from putting yourself at the bottom of your to-do list, not even asking yourself what you want, even when it comes to the most simple of things, like, do I want a coffee or do I want like a Starbucks latte? You know, the simplest things, we are making ourselves the last on our to-do list. We should be really prioritizing ourselves, right? And this is a perspective that you shared. I'm so happy that you share this with others as well, because it's kind of sad to even admit this, but I've done this. Many of us, we treat ourselves as second-class citizens in our own homes, in our lives, and because we're, you know, always so concerned about everyone else and everything around us. So I would love to hear your advice for how we can recognize this and how we can start to look at this shift from being the last on the to-do list to making ourselves more of a priority, and being able to ask ourselves, what do I really want? And then actually going for it. What advice would you share?
Great question. So I'm lucky I had my kids a little bit later compared to my friends in age and stage. And I think that with that came a bit more maturity and perspective. And to be honest, some of the life experience that I just shared, also with my mom's accident and situations around that, I learned as a caregiver, not as a caregiver to children, but you can't pour from an empty cup. And I think we all have heard that, and intellectually we understand what that means, right? Put your own oxygen mask on first. These are all things that are said commonly, but I think in my experience, and you said it beautifully, not being a second-class citizen in your house, in your family, in your own life, is looking at your day and your responsibilities and what you do, and asking yourself, how can you be supported? So I think as parents, we often ask ourselves how our kids can be supported, how our partners can be supported, how our parents can be supported, our siblings. And just like you just said, we are not anywhere close to the top of the list. And so if we reverse that and support yourself first, then there's so much more, because obviously you're more rested, you can just be more effective to support people. And I think just enjoy it a lot more, have fun with it. So, and every situation is so unique. It looks different for every family, every makeup. I think looking at family, of course, family can hugely support friends, babysitters, nannies, cleaning service. I think the pandemic showed us things like grocery delivery, which is huge.
So simple, but like
so
such
simple.
A time saver.
I know parents that love grocery shopping. I don't. So anything I can do to save time, 100%, I'm there for that all day long. We have someone who prepares 3 meals a week. I don't love cooking. It's not something that I'm good at or enjoy. And that ends up being a tug of war between my partner and I. So that's just something that's totally removed from our plate and just is a huge way to be supported. But I was speaking to a woman in my mastermind yesterday, and she had this amazing story of when she has 2 teens now, but when her kids were younger, her and her neighbors across the street had something on a Saturday night where they would take turns, but they would put their kids to sleep. And then you would just go camp out in your neighbor's living room. So you weren't babysitting, you weren't offering childcare, and that family could have a date night, go for a walk, like do whatever they wanted, and they left the house. And so it wasn't this, there was not, and we'll talk about guilt probably a little bit later, but there wasn't guilt of missing a bedtime or not being there, or this kind of like, again, this tug of war of being pulled in a lot of directions. But
Yeah,
of course,
or even like the cost associated, because
cost.
I don't know how much you get babysitters, but those rates have gone up since I remember.
Totally.
So yeah, sometimes that can be a hindrance as well. It's like, okay, so now I'm paying a babysitter X amount, then I'm going to go out and, do this or that. Right. So
the cost,
having a neighbor, that's so cool.
It's such a cool idea. Because also I think with some ages, you wonder, like, am I out too late? Like, does this teen need to go home? Am I walking them home? Am I driving them?
Can I not have a glass of wine because I have to drive them home after?
Exactly.
Yes.
So I just love this idea. And to your point, again, no cost and just that support. And they just had this like alternating of they called this camp out. And it just seemed like a really refreshing idea. I also think just using neighbors, especially for single parents. I'm really lucky. I do have a partner in the home. So I do a lot of walks before my kids wake up in the morning. I like to wake up early before. We have our 6 a.m. study that we both are in our coaching community. And I do a lot of walks after bedtime. That obviously is not an option for single parents that wouldn't have another adult in the home. So to just lean on neighbors, I think a lot of neighbors are empty nesters, or they don't have kids, or they're just in a different stage and would love to offer that. So I think there's a lot of ways that you can carve out time for yourself every day. As you do such a great job in your Instagram, it can just be moments. It's not going to be 2 hours every day. It's not always going to be, this like beautiful, perfect, packaged self-care. It's not always going to be a day at the spa. It can be a bath. It can be, journaling, whatever fills you up, but just remembering that rest allows you to be more effective and to not just kind of go too far without recharging yourself, because then you're probably going to get run down, resentful, snapping at your kids, at, everyone in your life, and probably, to be honest, end up just getting sick. And then you end up needing to take more rest to recover, right?
Yes. As I don't know if you've ever encountered this, but it has happened to me, and it sucks that way, right? Because then you end up feeling guilty and feeling sad and feeling like you wish you could do more. And so it's like this, snowball effect of guilt or resentment or frustration or just like overwhelm. And it's not a good place to be. So it's beautiful that your question that to ask is, how can I be supported? And it just shows, like, I mean, we sometimes feel like we are the only ones who can do it, right? Like I'm the only one who can put my kids to bed, or I'm the only one who can pack lunches properly, or I'm the, and I am in a 2-parent household as well. So it's like, oh, like even with my husband, sometimes it's like, oh, it's just easier if I do it myself. Sure. But how can I be supported? Is it with, some of these things you've mentioned? And to go back to that question is like, sometimes there are things that we're not even thinking of. Can I get groceries delivered this week? Even though I do personally I love roaming the aisles of Costco, seeing what they've got, looking for little deals here and there. It is fun, but it's not fun on a Saturday morning when there's 9 million people in there. They're jamming carts everywhere and you're waiting in lines. That is not enjoyable. So it can change, right? But going back to that question, how can I be supported? I think it opens up and it makes you just feel a little bit lighter, because you know that you don't have to do it all. And that is, I think, the first step in living more intentionally.
If you've been here for a while, or even if you're new to the podcast, you likely know that my mantra is to incorporate small changes that will eventually add up to big results, and that it can be easy. These two themes are at the heart of my self-care journey, are the mission of my 30 Days for Me guide, and inspire most of the choices I make both personally and professionally. This is why I am thrilled to be participating in the Little Changes Home Challenge with Maple Leaf Foods to work on making little changes that can have a big impact on the environment. Maple Leaf Foods is a carbon neutral protein company. Being carbon neutral is a balancing act that requires some addition and subtraction. Here's an example. If you estimate how much carbon you generate through driving or heating your home, you can take steps to give back to the environment in equal measure, like planting trees, since trees remove harmful carbon from the air. I know you like me, probably have good intentions when it comes to making sustainable and eco-friendly choices, but sometimes it can be confusing. And research actually shows that 52% of Canadians admit they could be doing more to help the environment, but don't know where to start. And 75% of Canadians asked for little changes that they can make to protect the planet. This is why Maple Leaf Foods is marking November 7th as Little Changes Day and invites everyone to make little changes that can have a big impact on the environment. Doing things like switching your light bulbs to energy efficient LED lighting, composting, or washing clothes on the cold setting to reduce energy. Will you take the Little Changes Home Challenge? Find ideas online and join me in making a difference by sharing your hashtag Little Changes on social media, tagging at Maple Leaf Foods, and tag me at Andryanna G.
You like to talk about this notion of intentionally designing your day. And I think that's really special. And I think, again, sometimes we get into these patterns, or we're just, so busy that we don't even think about it. And so you've mentioned a lot of these things, delegating tasks or outsourcing, or, just removing things from your plate, things that don't light you up, like cooking or, things like that. But can you share on how you do this? What does intentional living mean to you? And aside from asking ourselves, how can we be supported? How would you suggest we start designing our days in more of an intentional way than just like rolling with the punches?
Yes. So starting with the question of what do you want and what feels good for me, and I started this intentionally with my private coach, our coach, Hannah Khan, when I started my work with her about 1.5 years ago. And for me, that was removing should. So an example that I think resonates, we've talked about this before, and I think it resonates with a lot of people. In my past self, so when I was I'm using air quotes, people can't see me, but for you, using air quotes, tizzy, hard, hustle, this martyr, I can do it all. It's easier if I do it. I do it the best. And I'm 100%, I own that I'm a type A controlling personality. So to remove should, I'm left with, what do I want? And so the example that I think can really resonate with people is PTA. So Parent Teachers Association. So when you receive an ask, so it's an email, or maybe it's in person or a phone call, and you're asked to volunteer for something, what I do is I pause and ask myself, what do I feel? Do I like what's coming up? Yes or no? And so, if no comes up, then that's intuition and it's pretty clear, like it's a no, and no is a complete sentence. And obviously I want to be polite and respectful, but no, thanks. No. If yes comes up, I pause further. Am I saying yes to this ask because I feel like I should? Because this is society's expectations. Is this something I want to do? And I will say, in a prior kind of circumstance or prior season, I was yes. There are people that love volunteering, that lights them up. They are amazing at that. All the power to them. I used to be that person. That is fantastic. In my current season, that is not me. So an example where I've implemented this is saying no. And it's not easy. I hit an edge. It's a stretch for me because I am a recovering people pleaser, like a lot of us are, that would just add to the to-do, and admittedly would do it at the sacrifice of something else. So maybe one of these examples of carving time out for myself, or more importantly, maybe not making it to my daughter's ballet class. And so where I've gone deep is just looking at what is more meaningful to her. So my daughter's 5.5. And yes, I want to be at school events, and I want to be at the Terry Fox run when they're running. And I want to be obviously at Christmas concerts and parent teacher interviews. And there's a lot of things that for me are deal breakers, but the behind the scenes PTA, that does not include interaction with her or the kids. And getting to her ballet class, or even the end of the ballet class, because I'm very privileged to have a nanny, that is something that's really important to her. That is quality time. And she does notice that. So for me, recognizing that it's not always possible to put everything on our plate every single day, that was a really powerful reframe of, where do I want to be? What is she going to remember? What's the most meaningful to her? And what do I enjoy? And again, in this season, that's just where I want to be. I want to be at the ballet class. I want to be chatting with other moms. I want to be having that interaction with her. And I want to go to amazing school events, but I don't necessarily want to be the person behind the scenes organizing them right now.
Exactly. And we were laughing a little while back because I recently resigned from my role as the chair of our school parent council, which was a position I held for 4 years since my son was actually in junior kindergarten. So that for me was difficult. But to your point, when we're looking to design our days, we all have the same amount of time. Right? Like we don't have any more or any less time than anyone else. And so when this fall, I was looking at what was, on my plate and thinking, well, if I add this, then what do I have to remove? Or like you said, what is it at the expense of? Is it at the expense of my feeling of calm or my ability to, like you said, like take a bath at night or, go for a walk? These things are so important, but they're often the first thing to go when we pile on too much. So I love that. So when we are designing our days, we're asking ourselves, what do I want? How can I be supported? We are removing should. I call it shoulding. Like, are we shoulding all over ourselves or thinking like, I should really be on parent teacher association, or, what's really going to be most important at the end of the day. So that's so beautiful. And it kind of brings us into this discussion, this topic, and this theme of having it all. And I think it's something that we talk about a lot in society, and this notion of having it all. And you are an ambitious working mom yourself. You understand the juggle. The juggle is real. One myth that you like to debunk is this notion that to have something that you want, it has to come at the expense of something else. So, when we're talking about work-life balance. So tell us about how you reframe this. Unpack this for us, because some of us will just continue to say yes. Some of us will be that people pleaser. We're not sure how to maybe say no in a way that doesn't, we think everyone's going to be mad at us or sad or disappointed. How can we really reframe this to look at the things we truly want to do, to be supported in the ways we want to be? How can we actually have it all, I guess, is the question. And I know it's pretty loaded. I'm asking a lot, but I mean, I love that you understand it, but you also know that it's okay to say no. It's okay to put yourself first. It's okay to do what you want, and everyone else is going to be okay. So unpack this for us a little bit.
Yes. I think I might have been the first person to congratulate you for resigning. And I'm the first person.
Yes. You were so excited. It made me feel better about the decision.
And I think it comes to, I just want to start with supporting everyone. So I'm the first person to congratulate the person who was head of PTA for 6 years. And I'm the first person to congratulate the person for resigning, because I think that those are equally amazing accomplishments, because I think we all need to respect the season and the boundaries. I was at a meeting for my son's school last week, and I raised my hand, and I actually started with, I'm not volunteering, which was a bold statement for me to say. And everyone, it was a bunch of class parents, and everyone laughed. And I was like, here's a suggestion. This is what we do at my other child's school. I'm not volunteering. And again, just refreshingly candid, because I have nothing to apologize for. But again, everyone who is volunteering, I have all the time and space, and 100% hold them up. To answer your question, I like to focus on the word and instead of or, and to come back to debunking society's, belief that everything comes at the sacrifice of something else, with the qualification that the and is going to encompass what you want. So I don't believe that as humans, parents, moms, we actually want everything. So as the example I used earlier, I don't want to do the cooking. I don't want to do, I'm again, very, very lucky with a lot of help in my home, and I can kind of look through where it makes sense to do the responsibilities. So, some of the more household cleaning things, those are not things that I would say light me up. But I also believe that all moms and parents are working. So I know there's a difference between working in the home and working out of the home, but I really think that it's so refreshing when we all support each other and hold space for whatever the role is. Sometimes it's a choice and sometimes it's actually not a choice. So the circumstances can really vary. But when it comes to supporting people, then I really think you end up getting supported. So we have a really strong group of moms, my daughter's school, and one is a single mom and she's a working parent. And the other moms pick her daughter up from school, change her for ballet class. They're there and my nanny's there and I come at the end. And that affords her an extra hour of work without having a full-time nanny, without paying for someone to be there. Sometimes the grandmother steps in. And again, it just comes from the energy of truly supporting each other, working, not working, whatever the world looks like for each person. And then for my personal boundary, and this is something I will qualify, I'm working on this. I'm still a work in progress in many ways. It's being present, whatever I'm choosing to do in that moment. So I am much more effective if I'm working and I'm focused on work than if I'm also trying to answer things, relating to my kid's school, order, winter boots, just kind of go through the to-do list, because then what happens is my attention is split, my energy gets frazzled, I'm exhausted, and I can kind of fall back into what I used to call myself pre-COVID a couple of years ago before really diving into this work, which I called the tizzy. So, and then on the other side of that, I think if I'm choosing to go to the end of ballet, sometimes I totally understand there's working parents, they're there on the laptop, they're answering calls, we're all fitting a lot in. If I choose to go to ballet, I'm chatting with other moms, I'm present, I'm there. And then, yes, I might come home and go to my laptop, answer emails or calls when my husband's, with the kids at dinner or a nanny. But I think it's really choosing and being present and making that work for you. So I don't think anyone has the magic recipe for balance. And I think every day looks different. Even parts of each day can look different. I don't think anyone's managed to clone themselves and be in more than one places at once. But it can also just come down to, you obviously have 3 boys. I just have 2 children, but it's kind of the same as when you're having that golden time with one child, really being present and focusing. And even if it's only 10 minutes, that goes so much farther for my 3-year-old son than if I spend an hour with them with my attention split and I'm trying to do one thing with my daughter and I'm ignoring him, and it just kind of ends up with a less effective result. So again, I don't have the magic answer, but I think it comes down to supporting, everyone around you. I think that comes back. And then just being really present and mindful of what you're choosing to do in each moment.
Exactly. I love how you brought in that little parenting tip from parenting coach Tia Slightham, because I interviewed her a little while back on the podcast.
I love that.
But we both know her through common circles, and so that notion of golden time, I think, is really key. So you can check that episode out, to the secret of stress-free parenting. But really having that one-on-one time, I think, is so beautiful. And I think this kind of goes into looking at the juggle. Are we making it more difficult than it has to be? Having some one-on-one time can look very simple compared to, having this ornate day where you're doing the pumpkin patch or apple picking and you're doing all of these things. And then maybe there's a tantrum, or maybe someone's hungry, or maybe the kids are fighting. 10 minutes of building Lego, just one-on-one, or coloring, or, whatever that is, can sometimes be more effective. And, the quality of it is really trumps the quantity in some cases. I was recently listening to an interview with Sheryl Sandberg. For those who don't know, she was the COO of Facebook, now Meta, and she held that position for 14 years. And she's recently just stepped down to focus on other pursuits, a lot of philanthropic pursuits that she has, and different passions. But in the discussion, she was talking about one of the deepest biases that we are all up against as women, and that is that we cannot have it all, and again, air quotes, have it all. And what have it all really means when you break it down is to be moms, to be mothers, and have a career. So in this interview, she was explaining the statistic that I was really shocked by, but that they've done experiments where they sent out exact resumes. So everything was the exact same on this person's resume. same name, same experience, same qualifications. The only difference was that on one of the resumes, they put that this person was a member of the PTA, the Parent Teachers Association.
Wow.
And in this, essentially, the only thing that we're signaling here amongst these two identical resumes is that the person who has PTA is a mom. The person who puts PTA on a resume has children.
Mhm.
And the interesting thing about this was that for these two resumes that were sent out, 80% fewer interviews were given to the person that listed PTA. So it was shocking to me in some ways, but in other ways, I was like, yeah, I guess that makes sense, because there
Mhm.
is this bias against women that we cannot be good moms and be
Mhm.
successful within our careers. I'd love to get your take on this subject. It kind of bleeds into this notion of having it all, but what does it mean for you personally to be a great mom and also to be this ambitious, career-driven person? And I know you've touched upon it a little bit as well, but what does that mean and what does that look like for you?
Firstly, that's a staggering statistic, especially in my search practice. Personally, when I'm screening resumes, I do the opposite. I see a mom as someone who is incredible at time management, resilient, is juggling the equivalent of more than one full-time job. So that's really interesting that bias is still so prevalent in the external. For me, I am an inherently ambitious person. I really love to create. I love to learn. I love to grow. I'm just happiest when I'm moving. And so it's just important for me, for my kids to see that part of me. Do they sit beside me at my desk all day? No, of course not. But for me to show up fully as a mom, as a parent, and just, they also see me obviously as a wife and as a daughter and as a sister and as a neighbor and other roles in society. For me to be the best version of myself, that does include my creating. I try to use the word creating instead of work, because again, I'm intentional with my language and work can be negative. I also try to use words with them. I'll never say I have to work or I can't do this, I have a meeting. I'm very intentional saying I get to work, or I get to go to my office, or just reframing kind of the have to, because it's privilege. And it's something that I don't want them to see as a negative that's taking away from them. So again, it comes back to what we touched on earlier, just trying to be present when I am working. That makes me be able to be more effective and manage my activities and just have a higher productivity, and then be present with them, but also try to include them as age appropriate in examples of being, a financial contributor, being ambitious, being a strong female. And I think that's equally important. Like, I'm in a very privileged situation where I have a son and a daughter, and I want to raise two strong feminists. I want my son to be a feminist, and I want my daughter to be a feminist. And so I think on both sides of the coin, it's really important that they see a strong female. I'm also very, very, very open in conversations with, when my daughter mentions other people, their mom's coming to pick them up at school, taking them to ballet, and just differences of other situations, other families that don't have a nanny, and they, seemingly to her would be with their mom more. So we have a lot of open conversations about what that looks like. And then I try to focus on the wins. And I will say the wins are when I do drop off, which isn't every day, but when I do drop off, which is, a couple mornings a week, it feels special. It feels like a treat when I am there at the end of ballet class. And we do have this time when I do go to the Terry Fox run. And again, I still have this like beautiful age. They're very young. So I'm their favorite person in the entire world, of course, with their father. But it just allows me to focus on that being a real win, because it's not always the case. And so it's beautiful, of course, in situations where that is always the case. And there's, a way for it to work for everyone and whatever your setup looks like. But I do try to focus on them seeing this creative side of me, this ambitious side, all as positives, the ability to do something I really love, and help people. If you ask my daughter what I do for a living, she says I help people find jobs, which is really endearing. She's been saying that since she was about 3. she also will say, why don't you work at a store like her friend's mom? And why don't you work at a store that sells shoes? So it's interesting to see just their mind and the relative comparisons and their awareness. So yeah, just coming back to wanting to show up as the best parent. And for me, that is including the working part. And I also just want to show, I guess, all the people to your earlier statistic that, I mean, I'm as productive, more productive if I do choose to join the PTA, not the PTA parent or non-parent. That's never going to be a negative. I think there's so much more to offer. And just to really have our kids grow up in a world where that is not society's prejudice, I guess.
Yes. So many things that you've said here have really just like resonated deeply with me. And one of those things is just how you are modeling how you want, I think, your children to grow up and be in the world, you know, and I think so often, especially for moms, we feel like it's a bad thing when we can't be with them. And it's this, you know, we feel bad, or we have to make it seem as if we're trying to do all of these things. And it's like, oh, I can't, mommy's working, or mommy has a meeting, and I'm so sorry. But I love how you are looking at it, and you're showing your children how important it is to do things that you love, things that light you up, that you have the opportunity to help others, whether it's getting jobs or, you know, through the work that you're doing and what you're creating, and really showing them what it is, what you hope for them to have as well. And you mentioned you have both a daughter and a son. And I think, you know, for myself, and just having sons, we want our children to know that not only is it okay, but it's a beautiful thing when women can actually go out and shine and be those ambitious people, and is not a bad thing, that they can do those things that we would never ask a man, you know, like, how do you do it all? How do you have a job and have kids? Like, no one's ever asking a man, a father, these questions. So I think the more that you are leading this life by example, you're being a beautiful role model for not only your children, not only your families, the people that you're coming into contact with, but the people that you're working with, the people that you are helping to share and assist as well. And that kind of leads me into this question that I just kind of piqued my curiosity. But you are, among so many things, you are a business mindset and leadership coach. A lot of this has to do with career coaching. So what would be that sort of, you know, from the career side, what is that number one problem that you help your clients overcome? Or what's typically that first step that you help them take when they're coming to you?
Clarity. So the number one thing that people are identifying when they're coming to me in any kind of career transition, or they're looking for a new opportunity, whether it's entrepreneurial or to be employed, is to decide what they want. And so sometimes professionals, entrepreneurs have an idea of what they want. They have a couple buckets they're considering. But for the most part, we're just starting with honing in on identifying clarity of what they want. And I have a bit of a unique approach, I think, because there's an Abraham Hicks quote: when you know what you don't want, you know what you do want. And
I love that one.
Yes, reverse. So we do some reverse engineering. And I also think it's unique because we touch on personal and professional. So I take someone to the end goal, and I don't want this to sound morbid, but think of your eulogy and think of where you want to be at the end of your life and look back. So we work backwards. And so what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want the story to be? But what do you want your day to be? And I do touch on the personal and the professional. So as I've said several times, for me, I don't want to cook. Obviously, there's times when I cook and I'm not, you know, nothing is black and white, but we look at what you do want personally. Maybe you want to be in the PTA, maybe you don't. Maybe you want to get to pick up, maybe it doesn't work for you. Maybe you want to choose a job that has travel. So then when you are home, you're super, super present for morning, bedtime routine. But to go to the end and work backwards, and then just drilling down, the first exercise I have someone do is write a list of everything they don't want. I am so lucky. I work with peak performers, super elite, very accomplished, very, very, very top performers. And they have so many choices, so many options, almost to the point where they don't know where to start. And so we really work to decide, let's look at everything you can do, which is usually a large sample size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even for most people, like really, I mean,
exactly. You
the
can do
sky
anything.
is the limit,
You can do
aside
anything.
from maybe my son's going for the NHL. We'll see what happens there.
Well,
But yes,
no, but literally you can do anything. So coming back to what you don't want, but also in this exercise, we remove the shoulds. Because just because you go to business school or you studied for something, really, again, going into your deep intuition, and I have different exercises and ways that we do this, where here's everything I can do, here's everything I don't want to do, and then let's look at what's remaining. And do any of these remaining silos fall into a should? Because there we'll dive deeper too. Because just because you studied for something, you committed to something, you're good, maybe you're good at something, you don't like it. There's a lot of permission you can give yourself to come back to what you want and have clarity. And I truly believe, and this touches on the work that we do together, that once you have clarity of what you want, you attract it. And that's when you intentionally shift your language, your thoughts, your attitude, and it will appear. But the first and number one most important step is deciding, and it's deciding through that clarity. And again, often it just comes back to taking a look at everything you don't want.
I love that. I love just the word clarity. I think it just sounds so great. And I think so many people are in a position where I think that's all that they're looking for, is just to gain a bit of clarity. So a lot of these prompting questions I think are so helpful and also just taking a closer look, re-examining. And just like you said, just because you went to school to become a nurse doesn't mean that you have to pursue nursing if that is not something that lights you up anymore, or whatever direction you want to take or don't want to take. I think that's so beautiful. And I also love how you help your clients shift their mindset, but also how they're going about making decisions and the choices that they're making. We're taking out like that hustle and grind culture. We're removing sacrifice in order to receive what we actually want. We're moving hard. And this was such a groundbreaking topic for me, was we can let things be easy. It can be easy. And there are ways to get there that are not difficult. So I appreciate this holistic approach that you have, using things that we take for granted, or perhaps that we don't see as making us become successful or giving us the things we want, the things like having a positive attitude or being decisive about the choices that you're making, even when it's like the small, do you want to be on PTA? Yes or no? And I know we've talked about PTA a lot in this conversation. I have nothing against PTA. I loved being on school council, and the time I spent with the school council parents, I absolutely love. I'm still sitting on the council right now, but I'm just not the chair, so I'm not leading things. But anyway, that's another thing. But I just wanted to just mention that because we've talked about it a lot. Yeah, I know you don't mean anything bad by it. We just want to throw that.
Love the people that take on that seat and love the entire everything it represents. Yes.
So, but these very simple, but sometimes things that we talk about, like looking to our successes over our losses, measuring the gains versus what that gap is. Sometimes this can be easier to just say, oh yeah, I'm going to have a more positive outlook. It's easier to say than actually to do. So I would love to hear your advice for our busy working parents who we're in the trenches, we're listening, and we want to make these changes. We want to come closer to what it means to have it all with ease and fun and space in our day. How can we start taking action? If we're not sure where to start, is it going back to these questions, or what would you say to our listeners?
I think, in the words of Hannah, our coach, I would say they can't get it wrong. So any action is a positive. These questions are a great place to start. To have one takeaway, I would suggest to read or listen to on Audible or any kind of app that plays books, would be to read Benjamin Hardy's book, The Gain Over the Gap. And you just touched on that, literally, as the title says, it's focusing on the gain over the gap. And the philosophy is to measure your wins. So this is looking at what's working, what's easy. One of the suggestions in the book is to write down 3 wins before bed every night. And so this is similar to gratitude journal and picking your daily 5. This will reframe your mind to look at the wins, to look at what's working. It's very powerful. It's an easy place to start. It's a great tool in leadership in any company. It's a great tool in parenting. It can shift your entire relationship with your kids when you focus on what they're doing right and the successes. I think we all have I can't speak for everyone, but personally I have a tendency to focus on pointing out what needs work, weaknesses, try to give suggestions on what can be done better. And I mean, that would
fix the situation.
Fix the situation.
Yes.
We can do that in our marriages and parenting and in any kind of team situation. But to just come back to remembering what you focus on expands.
Yes.
So when we focus on the gain and you focus on the wins, and whatever your goal is, whatever your objective is, to measure what is working and start there, I think that that's probably a very easy and powerful place to start. And the more you do it, the more it's going to become second nature, the more it's going to become just the way that you've reframed your mind to see things. And it's just going to, I think, ideally make you happier and just have a more positive mindset.
Oh my gosh. I love that, Katherine. I love that. And I love that you mentioned Benjamin Hardy, because I thought he was like this old, not old, but like much older than he is. He's quite young.
Yes.
And he's a father, and he's adopted some children. And anyway, he's a beautiful writer and so intelligent. The gain, what's it called? The gain over the gap.
Gain over the gap. He actually reads the book. If you get it on Audible, you can follow him on Instagram. He's a lot of powerful quotes and just mindset reframes. I think he's one of the most powerful visionaries, leaders of positive peak performance thinking of our generation. And his story, as you just touched on, is remarkable. He's a remarkable personal story that he has turned into this beautiful legacy for so many people to benefit from.
Yes. His latest book too is called, I think, Be Your Future Self Now, something along those lines. And I haven't read the full book. I only listened to the first few chapters, and it's really, really great. One great takeaway is he was thinking about how tired he was. He was driving home from work and he was exhausted, and he was thinking like, oh, now I'm going to have to play with the kids. They're going to want to see me. They're going to, I have no energy for this. And literally just a quick reframe. And I know that you do this a lot too, and you help your clients with this, is like, 30 years down the road, I'm going to be whatever age I am, right? So I'm going to be 65, I'm going to be 75. When I look back, am I going to wish that I had spent more time playing with my kids? Am I going to wish that I made the time or had the energy or whatever? And it literally changed him from being in the car, being so exhausted after a, grueling day at work, to getting home, having so much more energy and exuberance, and having, that quality time, whether it was 10, 20, 30 minutes, whatever it was, actually just really enjoying and taking that moment and being present, which, you've spoken on a lot. And just looking at those wins, I think we can apply this in so many ways. Before our kids go to bed, we tell them 3 great things that they did that day, or 3 things that you're proud of them. I'm thinking, maybe I should do this with my husband. Like, we should exchange 3 things that, like, I'm so grateful that you did this, this, and this today, or you're such a rock star dad for whatever it is. But most importantly, thinking of it for ourselves. And instead of looking at all of the items on our to-do list that we didn't get to, what did we achieve? What can we be proud of ourselves for? Like, what are our gains for that day? And I think that's such a beautiful way to close your day, to close this episode, and really just to have that outlook moving forward.
I love that. Just remove the guilt, focus on what's working. And I think, from there, you can't get it wrong.
Oh, so beautiful. Katherine, you have a brand new podcast that is just coming out. Yes. Can you tell us a little bit about it? What's it called? What are you going to be talking about? Give us the details.
Oh, thank you. It's launching this month, Unicorn, Unleashing Your Potential. And I share business, mindset, and leadership. So touches on several areas. It's multi-passionate like myself, and I will be alternating interviewing thought leaders, experts in their field. So unicorns, as I call them, that's where the name comes from. And then the alternating episode will be me sharing some type of life hack, a mindset reframe, a story, something to make people smile, and ideally just a way to connect and share, my learning and growing and everything that I love to do with a larger audience.
Can't wait to listen.
Thank you.
And thanks so much for your time today. I will include a link in the show notes for where we can find your podcast. I'm also going to throw your website in there because there's going to be lots of great information for where we can find you. Perhaps people want to know more about you, your great fashion sense, your incredible life, and maybe get some more information on working with you. So Katherine, thank you so much for all of your time. It's really been great talking to you.
Thank you. This was lovely. Thank you for having me.
I love chatting with Katherine. I feel like we were sitting in our living room with a cup of tea, her matcha, me, English breakfast, and just having a great chat. So I hope that you enjoyed listening in on how we can lead a full life and truly have it all. I am so grateful for your time in spending with me and being here on the podcast. If you had a good time listening, can you do me a favor and give this episode a rating, write it a review, share it with a friend who you think could use this information as well. Maybe take a screen capture on your phone, share it to your stories, and tag me. I would love to share that. And if you are in this place right now where you're feeling the overwhelm, or like Katherine said, you are in the tizzy, I have some exciting news to share. You should be joining me live on Zoom November 16th for my workshop called You First, The Shift to Better Balance. In 2 short but impactful hours, I will be going over some very easy and effective ways that we can incorporate more space and have better balance in our days so that by the time we hit Christmas, we do not need to take holidays from our holidays. The show notes will have links to more information, how you can reserve your seat now, and how you can be joining me and an intimate group for a fully immersive experience in You First, the workshop to grow and find better balance. Until the next time, take good care.